What's going on, guys? I'm Chris,
And I'm Andy.
and we're starting up a new series today. This is going to be a new thing since the whole virus is going on. It will be online since we can't film in person, but that's going to be this movie debate series because while it seems like we agree on every movie we watch in most of our reviews, because we have similar tastes, there's actually a surprising amount of movies that we disagree on. So the first movie we're going to be talking about today is Mad Max Fury Road, which came out in 2015. And what were your thoughts on this movie? Do you love it or do you hate it, or are you in the middle on it?
I mean, at first, when this movie first came out, Mad Max Fury Road, back in 2015, I saw the trailer a couple months before it came out, and I thought it looked really, really stupid. And then I went to the theaters and I watched it. And then, of course, this debate, someone's got to be on the good side, and that's going to be me today because I love this movie. It is in my top 10 of all time. I think it is the best action movie of all time. And I mean, the cast is so iconic. George Miller does a great job. And yeah, I mean, that's just the broadness of it.
Yeah, we're gonna get into like our debate later on, go through certain categories, but you love the movie. I don't. I actually think this is the most overrated movie from the last decade. It's definitely style over substance, in my opinion. I'm not going to deny it's a visually stunning movie. The score is even epic, but when it comes down to the actual story, I'm just not engaged. I can't really get an emotional attachment to any of these characters because I feel like you're just thrown into the action for the first hour, and it gets kind of monotonous and boring to me. But those are just my quick thoughts on it. So we're going to get into certain categories. The first one I think we're going to talk about is our favorite moment from the movie. Like that moment where you're like, I can't believe I'm watching this. This is just awesome. So, what is that moment for you?
So there's tons of great moments in this movie for me. Of course, the final chase, like at the end, whenever they defeat Morton Joe and everything, is great. But for me, the moment that really stands out with this movie that I really think of is that moment when they're like all chasing each other and they go through the giant storm, and like Nux is like about to blow up the car. Mad Max like grabs the flare, like their car flips, and then of course like he comes out of that sandstorm. That's probably one of my most iconic moments of the movie. The visuals are great in that part.
I will admit that is like a beautifully shot scene with all the colors changing constantly.
Mhm.
And as much as I don't really care for this movie, my favorite moment, the only moment that actually gave me chills, it's towards the end, and that's when Nicholas Holt's character, he's driving like the big oil barge or whatever, and like the bride's there in the car and they're ahead of him getting away, and then I think he says like that iconic thing that he keeps repeating. I don't remember what it is, and then he like flips it, and yeah, he stops everything. That moment actually gave me chills, so I will give credit to it there.
Yeah, that's a good moment when he sacrifices himself, of course, in the end. And I mean, of course, like George Miller directing this, it's funny to me that he directed this because before this movie, his credits were Happy Feet 2, Happy Feet, Babe, like, and then of course the old Mad Maxes. So it's just like so random how he came back and did such like an epic movie like this, which was nominated for 10 Oscars, which I think does show the love, for this movie.
Yeah, and I know that most of those were below the line. I think it got a director and picture nom, but it didn't get a screenplay nom, did it?
Nah, heck no.
Yeah, and it's similar like to a recent movie. My argument is like 1917, beautifully shot movie, very well made. The story was kind of lacking, and I feel that way with Mad Max. It's just like the whole plot of the movie is just a chase, which sets up some great action scenes, but I don't really care. I don't feel like the stakes are that high, and the reason is Immortan Joe is not a great villain in my opinion. He's actually very comparable to like even Malekith from Thor: The Dark World. Like he's just this basic villain. I don't really care about him. Everyone around him is just kind of weird, and like I don't even understand why. I guess that's like the vision George Miller had for the movie, but I don't see the praise it gets as far as like yes, it is visually stunning, but I don't understand why this movie is like on so many top 10 lists. I know you love it, but I would just want to hear what you think about the story.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I have to hear that all the time if I say to somebody that I like Mad Max, who's like a film fan, and most people, pretty much most people will say like, this, how do you like it that much? It has no story, and that's like the most common complaint I hear from it. Which I agree, like the story is simple. Like obviously, in the beginning, he has some trauma with his kid and stuff, and then of course, it's just a one simple story. Like has to get back. It's just a chase. So I enjoyed it though because the characters involved in it. I know you said you didn't like Morton Joe, which I disagree with. I thought he was a pretty cool villain. His look was cool. Of course, like he was menacing, like with his voice, and then his like son, like especially the big one. I think his name was like Rigdus. He was like the muscle for him, which made him a little more scary. And then of course his like deformed sons and all those like people around him. That's probably where the movie gets like a little weird for me, a little too weird. But I still like it. And just like I said, like the story isn't that deep, but like Furiosa and Max and like Nux and all them like make it better for me, especially seeing like them get Furiosa like in that one moment when she's like on her knees crying. Like I feel bad for like I feel her pain because they were trying to look for like the green place, and it wasn't there. Kind of that was kind of the plot.
Yeah, I can see that. Just an issue I have with it is like I know there's moments that I'm supposed to feel an emotional impact with, and they just don't land for me. They miss the mark. Like that moment you just mentioned with Furiosa, like there's not a lot of characterization leading up to that moment where they like find the like her old group or whatever, and she like has that moment, and like I don't even really care. Like I know that sounds awful, but it's just I feel like it's not done well. I don't know. That's my opinion, but especially towards the end, like when she gets stabbed, like I don't even really feel anything. Like she's just another character, and I just wish this movie was next level. Like if it had like a story, I know it's not like a spy movie like Mission Impossible, but if it could somehow have like added a few more elements to the story, and then you add in all these epic action scenes, which it does have, then I think the movie would be like allowed to have all this praise. But just because it's visually stunning, which I've admitted many times, I don't think it deserves as much of the praise that it gets.
I mean, a big reason why I think that this movie is praised so much, and a reason why I respect it so much too, is because a lot of the stunts are real, like practical effects, rather than like there is visuals in this movie which are good, but it's more like that giant sandstorm and like when people get their face ripped off and stuff like that. I feel like that's when the visuals come in. But whenever he's like going like from like wire to wire, jumping from car to car, like, the explosions, all that stuff is real. So I feel like that makes it a lot better for me. Kind of like Mission Impossible, how that's pretty much mostly real too, and I love that. But something I wanted to talk about this movie, my favorite character of the movie, and the person who I feel like is the glue in this movie is Charlize Theron as Furiosa. I know you just said you didn't feel that bad for her and stuff, but I mean, to me, she's a badass. She's one of the most badass women in movie, if not the number one. Like her arm being cut off and everything, having that robot arm, still being able to kick his ass in that one scene. I mean, just her like look is so cool, and of course there's gonna be a sequel like backstory to her. So of course she's probably the fan favorite of this movie, enough to make their own movie about her. And I'm actually like excited to see that because when it starts with her in this movie, she's like already betraying Immortan and Joe and stuff. Like they were supposed to go to the bullet farm, and she went off the path with the bride. So I'm curious to see like her maybe be kind of a bad guy with Immortan and Joe, and then switch into being like how she is. I liked her though; she was badass, and of course Tom Hardy. I feel like this is his most defining role.
Really,
I think
I
it is.
mean, I love him as Bane. That's a me thing. I love him as Bane. That's probably like the role I think of when I think of Tom Hardy.
Yeah, when I think of him, I think of Mad Max, but Bane, of course, like, and in both of those, he's wearing a mask, and this movie
Mhm.
hasn't gone for like the first half of it, and then of course Bane. But
I
Tom
think it's
Hardy,
in his contract. It's like if you're in a movie, you're gonna wear a mask because he does it in Dunkirk too and Mad Max, like you said.
I think too, he has a mask. He's always wearing a mask, but his character in this movie, Max, is weird, and he's weird too. It's like a performance I've never seen from him give before. Because in The Revenant, he's super good. Like I think he got an Oscar nom for that, which actually was the same year, which is funny. But in this movie, he's like weird. Like he just grunts a lot. He just is like saying short words like water, water, like stuff like that. He's not like talking like big dialogue. So I can see like why it wouldn't be your favorite role, but I don't know. He just embodies Max to me so perfectly. I feel like he's a badass.
Yeah, he's definitely a really cool character, and I like him. But um, aside from like a few flashbacks of his daughter, I guess, I just don't really feel for him. I don't know if that makes sense to you or not, but the character that I think actually has the most depth is Nicholas Holt's character. What's his name?
Nux. And I like him too.
He's probably my favorite character, which is shocking, but it's true. I mean, I think he has the most depth and the most payoff in the end when he sacrifices himself.
The most depth, honestly, because his character like is a bad guy and he like falls in love with the redhead girl, and then like at the end he like sacrifices himself. He has a good arc. Another great scene in this movie that I forgot to bring up that is one of my favorite, and it gives me chills every time, is the moment when they're like stuck in the quicksand and all those guys are coming at them, like the bullet farmers and the other group, with like the guy with like the no eyes who gets his eyes shot out. And then that one moment always gives me chills, like when she puts the sniper on his shoulder and she's like, don't breathe, and then she just snipes him. That's a great moment, I thought. One of the five in the movie.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Like got the blue colors in the background, right? But
Yeah.
like that scene is just so long. It felt like 20 or 30 minutes of them just dragging in the sand, and I just wanted it to end, honestly. And that's how I feel towards like after the first hour of this movie. I think there's like a scene of them driving, of Max sleeping, and then it goes into that sequence, and then more action sequences, of course. But the first hour is definitely stronger. After that, there are a few great moments, like I mentioned, the Huck sacrifice, or Hut, whatever his name is.
I can see like how for you this movie is more like of a headache than like
Mhm.
a fun movie. Because for you it's probably just like obviously it's just nonstop action with not
Yeah.
just explosions, explosions, explosions. Like I can see past it. Luckily I can, because if not I'd hate this movie too. But I don't know. I was going into this movie expecting to hate it, and I liked it. But something else I wanted to bring up was the 6 Oscars that this movie won. I have it right here. So it won Best Costume Design, Best Makeup and Hair, both the sounds, Production Design, and it won Visual Effects. And I mean, that's 6 Oscars right there. I think it should have won all 6, along with Best Director.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Alejandro Iñárritu won director for The Revenant, right?
Yeah, and that was damn good.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to top that, at least in that year, but the technical categories, definitely. I don't know what else would have won. I mean, maybe The Revenant, but
Yeah.
yeah, this well-deserved when it comes to the visual categories.
I wish it got a score nom, but I don't think that, yeah, it didn't.
Epic score. I really liked the score.
It's weird that it didn't. One more thing I wanted to bring up about this movie that was super weird was like the guitar playing guy. How do you feel about him? He's so weird. That's like the weirdest part of the movie to me.
Just so random. Like,
I
I mean,
like.
I don't know.
It's funny that like they brought him up throughout the whole movie.
Overall, in my opinion at least, Mad Max Fury Road is just extremely overrated. And while it does have some pretty cool action sequences and visually stunning sequences, it's style over substance. Should it have won those Oscars for the technical categories? Yeah, I think so. But should it like be on people's top 10 of the decade list? I don't know about that.
Well, for me, it's a 10 out of 10, surprisingly, and one of my favorite action movies. I hope you guys agree with me, but I can see if you don't. Of course, this story is a little weak, but overall, I do love this movie.
Yeah, so if you like Mad Max Fury Road or dislike it, let us know down below whose side you're on. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel, because we've got a lot of videos planned and it would mean a lot to us. And be sure to like this video and, like I said, comment down below. And until next time, see you guys later.
See you guys.